Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Ultimate AFL Show for another week. Now in this episode I'll be looking back on what was an interesting Anzac Round, Round 5, of course some brilliant clashes, some interesting results, some teams under the pump after this Anzac Round. Now I'm also going to be looking towards Round 6, which features an absolute mouth-watering Friday night clash at Etihad Stadium. Looking forward to looking at that, and of course all the other games on Saturday and Sunday. So let's get straight in to the show. Anzac Round started on Friday night at the MCG between Hawthorn and the Adelaide Crows. The Adelaide Crows going very nicely coming into this game. Hadn't lost a game since round 1 between North Melbourne at Etihad Stadium. Hawthorn have won the last 2 games coming into this match by 3 points, so under a goal. And, well, it was a very interesting game from start to finish. The Adelaide Crows led at quarter time, 7-1 to 4-3. It was then Hawthorn who took the lead at half time, 10-5 to 10-3. Adelaide Crows, they took the lead at 3-quarter time, 14-6 to 12-6. So Hawthorn were down by a couple of goals. But it was Paul Palopolo who got the 3 votes you would think in the Brownlow for this game. You would pretty much think so because he had a best on ground performance, no doubt about that. He kicked the winning goal after a free kick by the umpire, push in the back it was. And Hawthorn were able to snatch the match by 3 points. This was the 3rd match in a row that they've won by 3 points. Absolutely incredible. And this is what good teams do. They always find a way to win. It doesn't quite matter how much you win by, but if you always find a way to win, especially when you're down at 3-quarter time, then that's what makes you a premiership side, and that's why they are 3-peaters. The final score, Hawthorn 17-10, 112 defeating an unlucky Adelaide Crows 17-7, 109. A lot of people think about the free kick at the end in the dying seconds of the match. It wasn't paid, of course, holding the ball. Isaac Smith, I guess, incorrectly disposed it. Not really sure if it was a free. I think he really had no prior, but I'm very interested to hear your thoughts. Of course, there's so many thoughts by everyone around the footy world if that should have been a free or not. The umpire's boss said he was confident that wasn't a free. But anyway, the goal kickers for Hawthorn, Palopolo kicked a massive 5 goals. Rioli kicked 4. Sigley kicked 2. Geez, he's on fire, isn't he, this season? He is one of the most improved players for Hawthorn at this present time. Bruce Gunston, O'Brien, McAvoy, Segler and Smith got singles each for Hawthorn, while for the Adelaide Crows, Betts kicked 3. Jenkins, Walker, McGovern, Lyons and Lynch kicked 2 each, while Brown, Cameron, Seedsman and Sloan kicked singles each. Of course, Paul Palopolo getting best on ground in the Hawthorn's best. A crowd of just over 45,000 attended this game. It was a great match to start Anzac Round. Saturday started at the SCG between the Sydney Swans and the West Coast Eagles. 05-06 grand finalists. Back in those grand finals, that was where these two teams made themselves known as rivals, so they've been rivals ever since those grand finals. And this was the first time West Coast was playing the Sydney Swans at the SCG in quite a few years, so it was good to have these two playing at the SCG again. And well, West Coast led at quarter time, but that was the only quarter or the only break in the game that they led, because the Sydney Swans were able to put the foot down on the accelerator and speed through to win 12-16, 88, defeating West Coast 7-7, 49 in a very good display by the Sydney Swans. Of course, lost in what was an unbelievable game at Adelaide Oval against the Adelaide Crows the week before. To rebound here against a quality West Coast side was quite impressive from them. Franklin got himself on the board with 2 goals, as well as McVeigh and Papali, who kicked 2 each as well. Sinclair, Heaney, Richards, McGlynn, Lloyd and Hewitt kicked singles each for the Swans. While for West Coast, Kennedy kicked 2, Hill, Redden, Yep, Shuey and Natanui kicked singles each for the Eagles. Not really a great travelling side at the moment, the West Coast Eagles, I must say. The next game was a twilight game on Saturday between the Suns and the Kangaroos, Gold Coast and North Melbourne. And, well, North Melbourne led most of the way in this game to win their first game against the Gold Coast Suns in the last 3 attempts. They haven't actually won in the last 3 attempts, so this was the first time for quite a while that they've beat the Gold Coast Suns. 11-15-81 Gold Coast, defeated by North Melbourne 18-11-119. The goal kickers for the Gold Coast, Lynch kicked 4, Wright kicked 3, Ablett, Ouchie, Grant and Riscatelli kicked singles each for the Suns. North Melbourne, Brown kicked 4, Higgins kicked 3, Thomas, Waite, Petrie and Goldstein kicked 2 each, while Gibson, McMillan and Zeeble kicked singles each for the Kangaroos. They are still undefeated and they are the only undefeated team, North Melbourne, in the competition so far after round 5. On Saturday night, 2 games like there always is, and it was at Etihad Stadium where the first game kicked off between the Western Bulldogs and the Brisbane Lions. Of course, a good bounce-back win for the Dogs last week against Carlton after going down to Hawthorn the week before by 3 points. They were quite good last week against Carlton. And, well, they couldn't find the sticks early, the Dogs. They had about 6 behinds or 7 behinds before late in the quarter where they got 3 goals to still take the quarter-time lead. 3-6 to 2-1 the Brisbane Lions. They led at half-time in a pretty convincing lead, 9-8 to 4-4. Then at three-quarter time they led again, 13-11 to 7-5. And then in the end, the Western Bulldogs finished the game winning 17-18, 120, defeating the Brisbane Lions 10-7-67. The Brisbane Lions at various stages in the game did try to take it up to the Dogs, but the Dogs were just too good in this game for the Lions, especially at their home ground of Etihad Stadium. The goal kickers for the Dogs, Stringer kicked 3, including a Goal of the Year contender where he bursted through 3 Lion players and then booted it in the air straight through the 2 sticks in what was a remarkable goal. Bontempelli kicked 2 as well as Dalhouse, McLean, Liberatore and Dixon. They also kicked 2. Campbell, John, Wallace and Roughhead kicked singles each for the Doggies. While the Lions, the Roaring Lions, Leicester kicked 2. Zorko also kicked 2. We also had Rockcliffe, Hanley, Skay, Rich, Walker and Bewick who kicked singles each for the Lions. The other Saturday night game was at the Adelaide Oval between Port Adelaide and Geelong. Port Adelaide looking to bounce back after their smashing loss to the Giants in Canberra the week before. Geelong, they got a good win the week before against Essendon, even though they were challenged at various stages of the game, or well, for the most of the game until the 4th quarter where they accelerated through to win the game. Port Adelaide actually had the quarter-time lead 5-4 to 1-4, so in front by 4 goals actually, before a massive brawl broke out, a massive melee broke out at quarter time. Of course, a bit of a Dangerfield roughing up, I guess you could call it, sparked the brawl, and it was actually, it just reminded you of old times, didn't it, where those massive melees used to break out in the olden days of AFL. But yeah, this was a classic melee, I tell you that. It was quite good to see too. But anyway, since then, Port Adelaide just lost it really, and they were kept goalless in the second quarter. Geelong took the lead 5-6 to 7-5, and then at three-quarter time, Geelong just steadied through really, and yep, they won the game pretty much in the end, pretty convincingly, 16-11, 107, defeating Port Adelaide 8-11, 59. The goal kickers for Port Adelaide, Dixon kicked 3, Wines kicked 2, Broadbent, Eamon and Ebert kicked singles each. Geelong's goal kickers, Menzel kicked 3, good story that is. Dangerfield, McCarthy and Kirsten kicked 2 each, while Selwood, Stanley, Guthrie, Hawkins, Motlop, Cockatoo and Caddy kicked singles each in what was a pretty fired up game, but in the end Geelong were able to take the chocolates pretty convincingly. Sunday there were 3 games to highlight Anzac Day Eve, And the first game was at Etihad Stadium between the Saints and the Giants in what was a pretty poor display by the Saints. The week before, they really took it up to Hawthorn and Aurora. It was quite amazing what they did, and I think we all kind of raised our eyebrows and said, wow, this is really good by the Saints. They really are on the improve this year. But this was pretty poor by them, I thought. I didn't watch the game, but I did try and keep up to date with it, and I have watched the highlights, and I thought they would have done a bit better than what they did. The final score ended up being St Kilda 12-7-79, defeated by the Giants 19-12, 126. They let it every change, the Giants, and yeah, a bit disappointing in my opinion by the Saints, considering it was a good display at Aurora and they were unlucky to lose it in the end. So anyway, the goal kickers for the Saints, Rewalt kicked 4, Bruce Savage kicked 2, Dunstan, McCartan, Sinclair and Nunes kicked singles each for the Saints, while for the GWS Giants, Cameron back after that suspension, kicked 5 goals. I actually saw a couple of weeks ago, I think it was on the couch, one of the programs saying they should just put Cameron in the VFL. That's not going to happen, is it? And that's exactly why it shouldn't happen. So a very bold, I think it was Jonathan Brown, I think, who said that. So a very bold statement there by Brownie. But anyway, Green and Johnson kicked 4 each for the Giants, while Patton, Smith, Steele, Ward, Whitfield and Williams kicked singles each for the Giants in the first game on Anzac Day Eve. In Perth on Sunday, it was a boil-over in the second game on Anzac Day Eve between Freo and Carlton. These were two winless sides going into this game. One of them was going to get their first win of the season. I think a lot of people thought Fremantle were going to get their first win of the season. That didn't happen at all. It was a close game the entire way. At quarter time, scores were level, 2-5 apiece. At half-time, Carlton were in front by 1 point, 4-8 to 4-9. At three-quarter time, Freo were up by 2 points, 6-12 to 6-10. So a very remarkably close game. And in the end, Carlton took the game and won it. 10-12-72, defeating Fremantle 9-14-68. The goal kickers for Fremantle, Walters, Cozier kicked 2 each. Sutcliffe, Fife, Tabernar, Griffin and Main kicked singles each, while for Carlton, Thomas kicked 3. Dale Thomas kicked 3. Can you believe it? That is unbelievable. Liam Jones kicked 2. Wright, Lamb, Curnow, Murphy and Gibbs kicked singles each for Carlton. The big news out of this game, not only that Freo lost and they're now the only winless team in the competition after round 5, but Fife has actually done a left leg injury and is at the moment likely to miss the rest of the season. So that is not good from the Brownlow medalist and Fremantle point of view. Especially the outstanding year he had last year. It's just not good for him. But anyway, over 34,000 attended this game, what was a pretty big boil over. So Fremantle, are they in a rebuilding stage now? I think they might be because, well, it's interesting. They've just lost the game to Carlton and... you know, looking back, it's kind of similar where Ross Lyon had St Kilda. They started to drop a little bit. So maybe this is the similar effect. Who knows? We'll just have to see in the next couple of years. I'm sure they'll rise again, but at the moment they're in a very big hole. Anzac Day Eve was topped off by a night game. This was one of 2 games I was going to in Anzac Round, and I was at this game and witnessed a pretty interesting and good game by these two, Melbourne and Richmond. At quarter time, Melbourne were able to take the lead 5-1 to 2-3. They got out of the blocks early. Brayshaw kicking the first goal in what was a pretty good goal. It could have been an incorrect disposal if he didn't get a foot to it, but he did. At half-time, Melbourne led again 11-3 to 7-5. I should mention, by the way, there was another ugly brawl in quarter time. Of course, a melee on Saturday night and now another melee on Sunday night in another game. It was pretty remarkable, and it was yeah, a lot of players in it, and it was quite good to see, and it reminded you of the old days, didn't it? But anyway, Melbourne had the lead at half time. They had the lead at three-quarter time. Richmond was still keeping in the game though, and well, in the end, Melbourne just proved their dominance and won 29-129 at Richmond, 14-12. 96, the goal kickers for Melbourne, Garlick kicked 4, Vince kicked 3, as well as Watts, Tyson and Gawn kicked 2, while Brayshaw, Bug, Salem, Harmers, Frost and Kent kicked singles each for Melbourne, while for Richmond, Rewalt kicked 3, as well as Lloyd and Vickery Edwards, Chaplin, Martin, Ellis and Miles kicked singles each for Richmond. Richmond at the moment, of course, hasn't won a game since round one. They're under the pump a little bit. But Melbourne, I tell you what, they are an unbelievable side at the moment. And in my opinion, they are the most exciting and improved team in 2016 at the moment. And look, as silly as this might sound, don't count them out of finals. They could slot in to 8th place the way they're going. That's just in my opinion, because we saw the Dogs last year. No one expected them to make the top 8. They did. Melbourne, they could slot into the top 8 this year. That's how even the competition is, and that's how well they are going this season. That's how improved they are this season. How remarkable would that be if they made the finals this season? The final game of Anzac Round was topped off by the traditional Anzac Day clash between Collingwood and Essendon at the MCG, starting at 3:20 p.m. I was lucky enough to be at this game to witness my first and experience my first ever Anzac Day match. I enjoyed it, even though Collingwood got out of the blocks early and pretty much dominated throughout the entire game. I still enjoyed it, and I'd love to go back and experience it again, especially when Essendon are at a full-strength side. Let's just go through the score. Collingwood got 8 goals in the first quarter. Essendon only the 1 goal, and the quarter-time score was 8-4 to 1-1. Collingwood led at half-time, restricted Essendon to only kicking 1 goal in this quarter. In the second quarter, led 14-6 to 2-2. At half-time, Essendon were actually starting to improve a little bit and starting to take it up to Collingwood a little bit. I think Collingwood, though, just kind of put the foot off the gas just a little bit, of course. But at a three-quarter time, 19-8 to 7-4 the score was. And in the end, the score finished 22-10, 142 Collingwood to defeating Essendon 11-7, 73. The goal kickers for Collingwood, Sidebottom kicked 4 goals, as well as for Solo, the 2 best on-ground performance players in the game. Blair kicked 3, Howe kicked 2, as well as Moore and Greenwood, while Cox, Oxley, Smith, DeGuy and Adams. Cox, that was an unbelievable moment when he kicked that goal, that opening goal of the game, the American, to get his debut goal. That was unbelievable, and the roar around the ground was absolutely sensational. So well done to him, and Collingwood need to play him a lot more now, because he's got the basics right. Now start getting him to, I guess, lead more, and he showed good signs, I can tell you that. Essendon's goal kickers, Grimley, Vantasia kicked 2 each, while Langford, Brown, Danaher, Stokes, Kelly, Cooney and Merritt kicked singles each. For the Bombers, still Sidebottom won the Anzac Day medal. He won it on 9 votes. Scott Pendlebury was the next best at 6 votes, while Adams, DeGuy and Treloar all got 1 vote. DeGuy had a really good game for me. Really impressed with how he went on Anzac Day. Pendlebury, like always, really standing up and performing well. And yeah, Adams and Treloar definitely deserve votes as well, because they were quite impressive. So over 85,000 at the G on Anzac Day for this one in 2016. I think it was the lowest crowd they've had for a while. I think it might have been in about 7 years, but it was still a good crowd. And yeah, it was good to be there. Okay, time for the stats after round 5. Let's see what's leading what. We'll start with the goals. Tom Lynch is leading the leading goal kickers once again after this round. He leads on 22 goals. Franklin and Waite are level on 18 goals, while Betts is 4th on 16 goals. And for Solo is 5th on 14 goals. The disposals, Mitchell leads once again, 177 disposals. Hall, 166 disposals. You've then got Gaff on 160 disposals. Neil on 155. And then Hunter on 154. The marks, Rewalt's got 49 marks. Shaw's got 45 marks. Kennedy on 3rd with 44 marks. Spur on 4th with 41 marks. And Boyd on 5th with 40 marks. And then finally the tackles, we have Swallow leading the tackles on 38 tackles. Barlow on 36, level with Mitchell and Thompson, and also Wines. So there you have it, the stats after round 5. And time now to end our round 5 review with the AFL ladder. North Melbourne, of course, top of the table, undefeated after 5 rounds. They are going along very nicely. They have a top-of-the-table clash with second place, the Western Bulldogs, this Friday night, which I'm looking forward to looking at very shortly. The City Swans on third, Geelong fourth, Hawthorn fifth after that 3-point win against the Crows. GWS are going along nicely on sixth. Gold Coast on seventh. You can see they're the two expansion teams in the top eight, and then the West Coast Eagles round out the top eight there. We've then got the Adelaide Crows just sitting outside of the eight. You feel like they don't deserve to be outside the eight after 5 rounds, considering the way they've played, but anyway, that's the way it goes, and that's how even it is at the moment. Melbourne in 10th, of course, like I mentioned, you never know, they could be in the top 8 this year, the way they're going. And I don't regret saying that at all, because I actually legitimately think they could slot into at least 8th place or even 9th, but at the most 10th. Collingwood sit 11th after that win against Essendon. Port Adelaide at 12th. St Kilda at 13th. Richmond 14th. That's how low they have gone after their poor form since round 2. We've got Carlton on 15th after that win against Fremantle, so they've risen up the table a couple of places. The Lions on 16th, Essendon on 17th, and then Fremantle. You wouldn't have expected Fremantle to be on the bottom of the ladder after round 5, would have you? Unless you're Brad Johnson. It's just unbelievable. They're the only winless team in the competition at the moment. Okay, time now to have a look at round 6. It is going to be another blockbusting round, that's for sure, and it starts on Friday night at Etihad Stadium between North Melbourne and the Western Bulldogs. The Western Bulldogs return to the Friday night stage for the first time since May 2012, where they lost to Geelong by 20 points in their last Friday night match. This game is a 7:50 p.m. start, like most Friday night matches are, and I'm really looking forward to this one. First, second. As a Western Bulldogs supporter, I'll be cheering the Western Bulldogs on, but I hope it's a great game, and I reckon it will be. It'll be interesting to see if the Western Bulldogs back line can take it up to the North Melbourne forward line. I believe North Melbourne have one of the best forward lines in the competition. I said this on my Western Bulldogs show, and I'll say it again on this show. I reckon they do have one of the best in the competition, if not the best, considering they've got Brown, Petrie, Harvey, Higgins, Thomas. You've also got Waite as well, who are all in form. So it's going to be interesting, because the Western Bulldogs have lost Suckling and Murphy going into this game, which are very crucial losses. So can they fill the void? I'm not quite sure, but it will be a good game, I can tell you that now. And looking forward to this one. Friday night, it kicks off, 7:50 at the Etihad Stadium. Saturday, there are 5 games, and the first game is at Etihad Stadium starting at 1:45 p.m. It is between Melbourne and St Kilda. St Kilda looking to redeem themselves after last week's poor loss to the Giants, while Melbourne are looking for 3 wins in a row. Of course, last week they got their first back-to-back wins since about 2011, I think it is. So they're looking for their 3rd win in a row, something they haven't done for quite a long time, I would suspect. So this is going to be a very interesting game. Etihad Stadium, of course, Melbourne haven't really been performing quite well on this ground, so St Kilda might have a little bit of an advantage, considering this is actually their proper home ground, St Kilda. So going to be an interesting game. 1:45 p.m. that game starts, of course, at Etihad Stadium, like I mentioned. The next Saturday afternoon game is the Adelaide Crows and Fremantle. We're going to be very unlikely that Freo are going to win this, considering the Adelaide Crows have been in such good form. I wouldn't be surprised if they smash them by about 50-odd points, the way Fremantle have been playing, but I think it would be unbelievable if Fremantle won this game. So this game is at 2:10 p.m. Australian Eastern Time at Adelaide Oval, 1:40 p.m. local time if you live in Adelaide. We've then got the twilight game. This is an interesting game. GWS Giants and Hawthorn. Can Hawthorn get over the line again? Of course, their last 3 games they've won by 3 points. I don't think they can. I think it'll be an interesting game. I think I'm going to tip GWS Giants. We remember last year Hawthorn lost this game over at Spotless Stadium. It was actually about this time last year they lost that game. So I'm going to actually tip GWS Giants. I reckon they can win this game, considering they've been in great form. It's their first home game of the season at Spotless Stadium, and it will start at 4:35 p.m. It is the twilight game of Saturday. 2 Saturday night games, of course. There is one at Simmons Stadium in Geelong between Geelong and the Gold Coast Suns. Of course, the Gold Coast Suns have lost their last 2 games to the Brisbane Lions and North Melbourne, so they are looking to get their first win since round 3. This game starting at 7:25 p.m. at Simmons Stadium, like I mentioned. I think I'll tip Geelong for this one, though. They're normally pretty good at Simmons Stadium. We know what they did to the Brisbane Lions a couple of weeks ago when they played their first home game there, so I think it will be just similar to that. And, well, the highlight game of Saturday night for me anyway, and probably for everyone else, is Richmond and Port Adelaide, 2 struggling teams who are down the bottom part of the ladder. This is 12th v 14th. Of course, Port Adelaide on 12th, Richmond on 14th. And this game starting at 7:25 p.m. at the MCG. I'm looking forward to this game. This will be a really good game. Not sure who to tip this one. I think I'm going to go the home side, Richmond, to bounce back and win. But, geez, it's going to be a good game. Port Adelaide need to bounce back and win as well. So it's a must-win for these 2 teams. Sunday, there are 3 games. It starts at 1:10 p.m. at the Gabba between the Lions and the Swans. Looking forward to this game. The Brisbane Lions, of course, won their last game at the Gabba between the Gold Coast Suns and, of course, got beaten by the Dogs last week at Etihad Stadium. This game starting, of course, at 1:10 p.m, like I mentioned, at the Gabba. The next game at 3:20 p.m, the mid-afternoon game, is between Carlton and Essendon, 2 rivals. This is 15th versus 17th on the ladder, actually. So, this will be a good game, and I think I'm going to tip Carlton for that one, I think. Yeah, I think I'm going to tip Carlton. I think they're going to get back-to-back wins under Brendan Bolton, and yeah, I think it'll be a good game. I think it will be a good game. And then the final game of Sunday is at Domain Stadium between the West Coast Eagles and Collingwood. It is a 4:40 p.m. start, of course, the twilight game on Sunday. And yeah, the Pies, good win last week against Essendon, but they do need to sharpen up a few more things from that game if they're going to win this game. But West Coast, they suffered a loss last week, so they could be vulnerable, but they are going to be hard to beat in Perth. And that is it for another episode of the Ultimate AFL Show. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and share this video. And don't forget to subscribe to get a new episode of this to your newsfeed every Wednesday. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoy round 6. It is going to be a beauty. Until next Wednesday, I'm Jacob. See you later.